So this week's Lovefly podcast, we welcome back Rachel. Rachel's on episode 149, and we'll do a mini recap of how bad your fear was. And we were looking for an update. You know, we know you've been traveling, we've seen you posting, so we thought it'd be good to hear how you're getting on, what's improved, what's still there, you know, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, let's do the official stuff. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm full of gunk from Mumbai. 3 weeks in India was the best, genuinely the best adventure. Loved every single second of it and cannot wait to do it again. I went with my sister and we were spending time with family. We have Indian family out there, and it's the first time we've been able to go out to India and spend time with them. Normally they come over to England from India, but yeah, this time we were going in their direction. It was absolute magic.
Brilliant. So maybe you could do a mini recap of where you were when we last spoke, because you talked about your really, really bad dog phobia and also anxiety and fear of flying and a few other things. So do you do a mini 149 recap?
Yes, I can do. So, one thing I may not have mentioned before is that I actually have a lifelong, obviously it's genetic. I have a genetic condition, and alongside lots of physical impacts that has on me, it also, in its affected population, causes lifelong anxiety and panic disorder. So, I've had panic attacks since as early as I can remember, and people have tried various ways to help me. One of my very good memories is of a friend doing that old-fashioned thing. This was at school when I was still quite young, and I had a panic attack. I can't even tell you what triggered it because it doesn't take very much. Slapping me.
Nice.
Like some.
That's the airplane movie.
Exactly that. And so I've always had to have really good coping strategies for anxiety and panic. And I'm also aware of the fact that for me, this will be a lifelong journey of constantly having to, because new things will come up every day. I say it takes much thing. I had a panic attack in a very public space just a couple of weeks ago. Very, very minimal trigger. It'll just happen. And I say that that's sort of part of the genetic condition that I have that affects everyone with this genetic condition. So the main phobia that I'd had all my life was, as you know, was a dog phobia. And dog phobia is very common. And of course, one of the big problems when it's a dog phobia is that when you're little and you say, you know, you're scared of a dog or whatever, is that everyone immediately rallies around and starts protecting you from it and keeping their dogs away and removing you from dogs and hiding you from dogs. And of course, all that happens is that you learn very quickly that this is something that you cannot face, and people keep reinforcing that for you. They don't mean it badly.
Yes.
Constantly preventing you from facing your fear. That obstacle gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and more and more and more reinforced. Nobody ever lets you just sit with your object of fear until that panic has gone. And one of the things I do know from panic attacks is they always go. A panic attack always goes. It feels horrible at the time, but if people will just let you sit with your panic attack, not only does it go, Paul, but one of the things that people who have panic attacks learn is that once that panic attack has gone, you may feel tired, but you also get a huge endorphin rush. So you get an awful lot of endorphins come into your body when you've had a massive panic attack. And that's when you get clarity. And it's often after panic attack, when you know you've been overwhelmed with a work problem or something, you've had a massive panic, a meltdown, call it what you like. You have that panic, and then you get your clarity and think, now I know what to do.
Really?
Sorry?
I didn't know that. I've never had a panic attack. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, as part of it is that sort of feeling of, I guess if you imagine bungee jumping, and people say they get a massive high because, of course, the body in a state of panic, and then you survive, and the body thinks, the holy moly, I survived a near-death experience. And that's kind of what panic attack feels like, a sort of near-death experience. You think you're going to get consumed by this, and then you come out of it inside, and then you get real clarity. it's just that that isn't the nicest way to go back lane, getting clarity. Don't get me wrong, they're horrible. I hate it when they come over me, but I know that it'll go, that it's safe terror, if you like. So with my dog phobia, it was impacting terribly on my work because I was working as a community midwife and I couldn't go into homes. I would have to ring ahead. And then, of course, people would say, oh, I'll put the dog away for you then. And of course, that just continues to exacerbate it.
Yeah.
And then genuinely, one day, I remember it vividly, I was in the street and I said out loud, I cannot have this in my life anymore. It was impacting so much. I thought, this is ridiculous. I cannot have this in my life anymore. And I am not a religious person, but I can only imagine that it felt like an exorcism. Because at that moment, when I made the conscious decision to give it up, it kind of lifted. And then I became the very opposite. And no, I love dogs. I have my own huge mutt. Who will be sleeping on the bed tonight. And it is a big dog, big dog with a big voice. Gave up my fear of dogs and then realized that you can genuinely just let go of fears. It is within your control to hold on to a fear or let go of fear, but continue to have, I say now I'm beset with anxiety and panic. And it continued to trouble me with flying. And people who've read my post recently will have seen that I am the sort of person that I have been the full-on screamer on flights. I'm not ashamed to say it, that I have been known to sit. And when I say I shout, some people say they're shouting or screaming, but really it's going on in their head and they're sort of quite quiet. I wasn't. I was full on screaming, with everyone sort of turning around. The first time I flew was when I was 19, and my panic was so bad before we left the ground that I was starting to upset all the other passengers. And so at that time, you could smoke on a plane. So I had my first fag and my first ever whiskey because they were just plying me with stuff to shut me up, basically, because I was in such a pickle and we hadn't even left the ground. So that was my first experience of flying, was me in a panic and people just shut me up.
And do you know why you would do that?
No, I say that the problem for me is that a panic attack can just strike over something very, very minor, even when I'm not even aware that there's anything to be frightened of. So somebody banging on a door when I'm not expecting it can just push things up. Yeah. And of course, then I was having a panic attack, and again, you're in closed space. And when you're having a panic attack, you feel that need to escape. So if people try and hold you, whatever, there's this real urge to get rid of them and to run. And I've had panic attacks indoors before, and all I need to do is get outside. You want to get out, get in the fresh air, be able to sort of breathe. And of course, you can't do that in an aeroplane. And I think that probably doesn't help. But of course, once you've had an attack like that in a situation, that same situation can keep on triggering it.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, that became the thing I said about myself. One, I'm scared of dogs and I'm scared of flying. And the more you use that to define yourself, the more people accept that about you, and the more your brain keeps replaying this version of yourself. Rachel, and I'm scared of dogs and I'm phobic of flying, it just becomes part of your gig. And I think, Paul, it can be quite hard to give up a fear in that sort of state, because it has become part of what you talk about yourself. How do you then let it go without having to eat a lot of pie?
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely there's sort of like secondary benefits.
Yes.
And also it's sort of like part of your personality or brand.
Yes.
Brand Rachel.
That's precisely right. Like I say, here I am. I'm Rachel. I'm a midwife and I'm phobic of dogs. And by the way, I'm scared of flying. And people keep telling you, there's nothing to be scared of. And you say, well, I am. That's all there is to it. And you just keep on reinforcing and reinforcing and reinforcing. What I did with dogs once I had given up that fear was I made a conscious decision to change my introduction. So then when I went to homes as a midwife and there was a dog in the house and people would say, "Are you okay with dogs?" Whereas I used to say, "Can you put the dog away, please? I'm phobic of dogs." I started saying, "I don't know much about dogs, but I'm trying to learn." And just that switch meant that people then started to introduce me to their dogs very carefully.
Mm.
And that's what I've started to do with flying. So when I get onto an aeroplane, instead of saying to the cabin crew, "I'm scared of flying," I'm much more likely to say, "I'm learning more about flying and I'd really appreciate it, if I ask you questions, if you can help me." And just that thing, I'm interested in flying. I'm interested in learning more about it.
Mm.
It completely switches the
What does that do to you when you do that? What do you notice?
Oh, well, I mean, it's massively empowering from my point of view because, of course, it stops the panic before it starts.
Mm.
I don't, if I feel panic coming on, one thing is I don't let this is something I've obviously learned over my lifetime, is don't ever be panicked by your panic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I feel the panic rising, which is a very common occurrence, I try not to give it the oxygen of publicity. That's an old Thatcherite term, is it? For those who know Margaret Thatcher, she say, "Don't give it the oxygen of publicity." So I try not to give my fear the oxygen of publicity because that just builds it up.
Yes.
Yeah. The more you sort of nourish that fear, the more.
Mm.
Whereas if you sort of cut off its oxygen supply, the more it sort of withers. So, yeah, I put what I'd learned from my giving up my dog phobia with flights. And then when I started to fly, then after giving up my dog phobia, I started to do the same thing, which is to learn more about flying, to listen out for the different noises and accept them as normal and safe. And gosh, isn't this interesting? What's that noise mean? What does that you tell me? The wings flap, what does that tell me?
Yes.
My husband is a graduate engineer, and so he was only too happy to bend my ear about. I knew anyway that it's very important that wings flap because if they don't, they're brittle and it's sort of fall off. Flapping is good. That's it. It's so the noises. My husband is great. He'll always tell me what the noises are. I've also got 4 sons, and it was imperative to me that I don't pass on my nuts. So in the early days, I used to sit separately from my boys. I used to say, "Oh, I'm going up the front with the baby," because the baby will need feeding and a bit of peace and quiet, and you other 3 are far too noisy. So I would purposely take a seat separate from my kids because my husband, they'd be having a great old time, and I would sit away from them.
Mm.
And then as time has gone on, I've just embraced. Yeah. You'll know this, Paul. I do an awful lot of public speaking. And people always say, "Don't you get stage fright?" And I don't. I just don't get stage fright. And I'll talk in front of thousands of people, big, big stages. And I don't get stage fright at all. But I think I feel what everybody else feels. And I think that everybody else, that sort of
Yeah.
nerves before you go on, everyone else calls fear stage fright. And I call it excitement.
Yeah. I see.
"Oh God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to get on stage." And I think that, yeah, when I'm flying now, when I feel that sort of or my brain starts to talk, because brains talk. They just do, don't they? They brains talk rubbish so much of the time, Every thought that anyone has ever had about aeroplanes, I've thought it. Okay, even when I get to my destination, when I was in India, my brain was still saying, "What if there's an earthquake? When we're by the sea, what if there's a tsunami? You better look out." All of those things, your brain talks rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when those sorts of fears come, I know from lots of experience to redirect it, to find something else to do, to calm my brain down by acknowledging those feelings as excitement or something else. And yeah, the flights I had to India were flipping marvelous. So genuinely great.
So I'm not sort of being funny here, but when I listen to that, it sounds like quite a bit of work on your part that you're having to sort of redirect. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'd like to be wrong just every now and then.
I wouldn't call it work. I would call it awareness. I think we have to accept responsibility for our fear. That's pure and simple. It's very easy to sort of push it outside of ourselves, that fear, and to blame everything else, to blame the aircraft or the news programs or something, to push all of that responsibility outside of ourselves. And actually, it's totally our responsibility. And I think we also have to acknowledge why we're making the decision to hold on to the fear.
Yes.
Why we are allowing it to stay in our lives. Because once, obviously, my family knew me as incredibly phobic of dogs. And when I say that I was incredibly phobic of dogs, I have, as quite a young child, walking home from a friend's house, accepted lifts from strangers to avoid going up a road where I knew there'd be a dog.
Yeah.
And that to me felt safer than going up a road where I knew there'd be a dog, where I could see a dog in the distance. I would flag down strangers and take lifts. I was impossible. So when I gave up my fear and then went on to get my own dog, of course, other family members were interested. And my younger brother called me up and said, will you talk to my niece, his daughter, because she is phobic of vaccinations. It was COVID. She wanted her COVID vaccination, but was phobic of needles and also phobic of spiders. So I talked to her for ages, and we talked about why we hold on to our fears and where we think we got our fears from. Do we really own them all, And I said, here's a thing. I said, at some point, you're going to have to ask yourself that hard question, which is my fear serving me? And until you accept the fact that your fear isn't serving you, you won't give it up. And so I said, I'm going to ask you now, is your fear of, we sort of put her vaccination to one side, is your fear of spiders serving you? And she said, do you know what, Auntie Rachel, at the moment it is. She said, it gets me a certain amount of attention, and it's how, again, no, here I am and I'm scared of spiders. And she was at university at the time, and she said that she got a certain amount of attention from boys wanting to sort of mother her and take care of her and show how big and strong they were and taking the spider away. And I said, so are you ready to give up your fear then? And she said, no, I'm not. And that, I mean, how smart was that? I think, oh my gosh, she's so right, because she had that insight to say, I know this is my fear. I know I'm holding on to it. And at the moment, I don't feel ready to give it up.
No, exactly.
And I found it harder, I think, to give up my fear of flying than even with my dogs. The dog one was debilitating on a daily basis. A fear of flying does not debilitate you on a daily basis unless flying is a daily occurrence for you. Whereas a dog was a more than daily occurrence for me. So that to give up that was fundamental. But with flying, you see, I've got quite a lot of friends because of where I live. A lot of people work in Heathrow. I've got a lot of friends who work in and around the aviation business. And I had to eat quite a lot of humble pie. I had to acknowledge the fact that maybe they were right and I had been wrong. And actually, Paul, I had to dig deep really to just put it down, to just put that fear down and accept the fact that it just was serving me no good whatsoever, because I love traveling.
Yes.
And I've never let my fear of anything stop me, because, in my life with constant ongoing anxiety and phobia, panic, I should say, if I let that anxiety and panic, I wouldn't go out the door. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And so I've never, ever let my fear and panic stop me doing anything. But that's a long way from giving up fear. There's one thing in living with the fear and accepting that it's part of your life. It's quite another to put it down, to just say, I just don't need that anymore. And it's a remarkable feeling when you just put it down, acknowledge that you just don't want it anymore because it just is not helping you. It's an uncomfortable feeling, and then allowing other thoughts and other feelings to sort of come in and fill a vacuum, because of course when you put down a fear, that leaves a nice little vacuum inside you, and that can suck in better things.
Yeah, that's good. So where are you now if you say, scale of 1 to 10, in terms of 10 out of 10 being like a really fearful flyer, and 1 is, just like a normal person, like, yes, it could happen, but nothing's going to happen to me.
I'm down at a 1.
Wow.
I'm down at a 1. If you watch the videos of me coming into land from at Heathrow from Mumbai, I am laughing. It was so exciting and so enthralling. Law I would classify her now as a recovering fearful flyer.
Right.
And walked her through she was asked if she would go and work in Hong Kong for a week for work. And she was quite a new mum. And as you know, new mums can be much more fearful of flying than they were before having babies. It's quite a trigger for fear of flying, is having babies. And so we talked about it, and I'd said, what is it that makes you anxious? And she talked about being in the airport. Well, what could you do to help in that situation? Well, I could go and ask people for help. But we talked to it. What about when you get on the aircraft? What would help? We've gone through all of that. And when she went abroad, and then bless her, she rang me up and said, how are you feeling about flying to India, Rachel? And I said, the thing I'm looking forward to most of all is actually being on an airplane and accepting the fact that I'm not frightened. I said, I'm really, really, I'm looking forward to that almost more than the holiday. I'm looking forward to being on an airplane and accepting the fact.
Yes.
I just don't have this fear in my life anymore. And she laughed because she said, oh, that's kind of where I am now. She's done the big flight. She's sat with her fear, got the other side, had a great time in Hong Kong, had to fly home again. Long flights.
It's a long flight. Yeah.
I think long flights are easier than short because you have to sit with that panic. And I know that our bodies cannot sustain a state of panic for very long. That's physiologically true, is that if you get into a state of panic, it cannot last for very long because the human body is evolved to survive that. And so the panic goes. So if you have a very long flight, you've got no option but to sit with that panic. And the panic goes. And
How long do you think they last? What's the average?
I'm a panic attack. Oh gosh, when I had a panic attack, probably the last panic attack I say was a very public space. It was a very public space. Probably, I guess my panic attacks when they're at their worst last maybe 10 minutes. I don't know, because they feel a bit out of body.
Yeah.
However, I have had what I would call status panicus, where I have had a panic attack. I'm coming out of it, and then I'll go back into it. And I have had a panic attack that then therefore has gone on for probably half an hour. But even that in the course of a 10 flight, I haven't had a sort of status panicus on an airplane. I've just had a panic attack on an aeroplane.
Yeah.
And my husband is great because he's used to it, and so he knows just to sit and be bored out this skull when I'm having a panic attack. Really, the worst thing people can do is fuss you. The best thing they can do is sit and knit. Really, my husband doesn't knit, but sort of metaphorically, he just sits there and reads and get on with it, love, because he knows that leave me alone and it will pass. It always passes. It's a horrible feeling, but panic attack is never going to kill you.
So what do you physically do then? So you said that it comes on, and you said it can be any trigger, any moment. Then and you think it's going to be about 10 minutes, what do you actually do?
If I know a panic attack is coming on, so they can come on quite fast. If I know there are certain triggers, so certain things can trigger me. So being tired and hungry and overwhelmed. Because if you think about it, when a toddler has a tantrum, really that's just a small child having a panic attack. And in an adult, you'll often find the same sort of triggers. So if you're too hungry, too tired, and then there is overwhelm or frustration, and we feel that with work, don't we? We're overwhelmed, we're frustrated, we're too tired. It all becomes too much and we quickly flip. So avoiding triggers, I think, is important. When it comes to flying, I found that I don't want to be rushed. So I'm better if I get to the airport in good time, but not too early. That I always make sure that I eat. I always make sure that I have planned. I've got all the things around me that are my comfort blanket. So I've got a gadgets bag, and I'm a terrible geek. I'm a hideous geek. So I have lots and lots of gadgets, plus my charger. I have prepped beautifully, so all my fluids are already in a nice clear plastic bag. So that makes me feel very in charge and very competent. When people ask me about my fluids, they're already in box. Everything's going off. I know exactly what to expect. And then if I can feel anxiety coming on or a panic coming on, then the first thing I do is to distract. Again, like you would with a toddler. If you think a tantrum is coming, when you distract them like crazy.
Yes.
Oh, don't you? With a small toy. There were lots of squirrels in our garden. An airplane. So distracting. So I would quickly try and distract my brain onto something else. If that isn't going to work, then I would just start breathing. And, I'm a midwife and I've taught active birth classes forever. So I know about the importance of breathing and making sure that my out breaths are longer than my in breaths. If that doesn't work and panic hits, and this is what happened last time, is I knew I had to get out of the situation. I was just in a situation, I'd woken up with, the other thing you don't know about me is that I have a stammer, which I've had all my life, but I just handle it. I'd woken up and my stammer was there. And then up to this situation where I was needing to talk within a group, I wasn't presenting, that my stammer was coming and I couldn't quite calm it down. And then I felt the panic attack coming on and thought, I need to get out of here. So I removed myself to somewhere safe. Did book in an airline, but there are ways that you can consciously, like I say, by distracting your brain, doing something else. But when I'm having that on their flight, then for me, it's about just accepting the fact that this is going to happen. And you have to just then breathe and sit with it. Occasionally, like this last time I had my panic attack, no matter how hard I tried, my breathing was getting out of control. And then somebody said, shall I come and sit with you? And I said, yes, please, just come and sit with me. This was said through a panic, needless to say, and me stammering and stuttering, but she knew to come and sit with me. And she said, what can I do to help? And I said, just sit. And just having someone sit there, she did nothing. She just sat there and she was not judgmental. She was completely cool, completely calm. And she did what any good therapist would do, really, which is sort of say, like, sitting there very quietly, when you're ready. not but just that sort of feeling of, this is going to go. The best way I can help women in particular understand it is that as a midwife, one of the things that young midwives are taught to do is to knit. So that when a woman is having, a panic in what we call transition, which is a normal physiological part of labor where you're almost ready to push, and evolution deigned that the best thing to do when you're just about to bring a new human being into the world is call like hell for help. Oh my God, help me. Oh, we've all seen it on telly. Women actually are fine in that space, but other people can panic a bit if they don't know what's going on there. Midwives love it because we know it means the baby's coming soon, because the woman is announcing. We call it announcing and calling. come on in from the fields, come and help me. I'm just about to give birth. And all they come in running, all your tribe, while you're sort of hunkered down in your primitive shelter. In they come. And what midwives will do is not join in that panic. Midwives will, when she's panicking, midwives will fill out their notes. They'll knit, and student midwives are taught to knit, because what that says to the woman is, I'm completely fine. I know you think this is terrible. I know you're, really anxious. I know that you are really, really losing the plot right now. And I know your partner is bricking it.
Yes.
But you know what? I am so unbothered. I'm going to finish knitting my row. And that's really what you need when you are in a state of panic, is not people fussing around you and trying to remove you from the panic, but just to sit there very, very calmly, giving you that very clear message. You're fine. You're just having a panic attack. And do you know what? This panic attack is going to go. And when it's gone, you're going to feel fine. And then we'll sit and we'll have a chat and we can have a sandwich. And that is how I deal with a panic attack, is by just allowing it to be there. Really, there's nothing you can do. Once a panic attack is there, you have to let it run its course, but not be panicked by your panic attack. It's just a panic attack,
It's a weird idea, isn't it? I mean, there must be a sort of evolutionary benefit to it for it to have survived, like it must have a purpose.
Well, yeah, of course it does, because panic attacks are, if you're put into a very, very, very difficult situation, you need to lift a truck off somebody. Of course, what happens is you get this immense, and what happens with women in labour when they are in transition is you get this massive rush of adrenaline, twice the normal highest adult dose. Okay, so when a woman is in that stage of labour, you imagine the highest dose of adrenaline your body ever rush with. She's got twice that, because after 3 days of being in labour, she really, really needs that adrenaline now. Okay, so in comes the adrenaline, but in comes testosterone as well to help you lift that truck. And so it's the one time when women get this massive rush of testosterone is when they're going to have to, after 3 days of being in labour, push a whole human being into the universe. Okay. And what happens then is it's kind of got a place to be.
Yes.
With a panic attack, of course, your body senses danger. In comes the adrenaline, in comes the testosterone, but it's got nowhere to go. It's sort of like all dressed up, but nowhere to go. And so that goes into a panic attack, because we don't need to lift a truck or run away from a tiger.
I love your little phrases. They're great. This one through corkers. Keep going though. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all. But you understand what I mean. It is that feeling of got all of this stuff coming in you, which of course, from an evolutionary point of view, is brilliant. From your primitive brain's point of view, danger, let's get adrenaline in, let's get testosterone in. And suddenly you've got all this stuff going on, but nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And so then you get a panic attack. It's inappropriate. It's an inappropriate use of your adrenaline and testosterone. Now, of course, if you were in an open space, you can go and sort of run it off if you can feel that coming in. You can run away from that tiger or whatever. But when it's an inappropriate, that's when you get a panic attack. And really, we just have to acknowledge the fact that we're just highly evolved, beautifully evolved human beings. But because panic attacks don't kill us, it's never been evolved out. If panic attacks killed vast swathes of the population, it would no longer serve its purpose and it would have died out, survival of the fittest. But of course, it has a certain purpose to a degree. It's what gets us on stage, actually. We're using up the adrenaline, and the testosterone comes in. We go on stage and say, hello. If we didn't then get the opportunity to go on stage and present or do whatever we wanted to, or to run it off, then it potentially could become a pain in the neck and burst into a panic attack. And I think that what happens with phobias is that we condition ourselves in a way to have this huge rush of, oh my God, there is a tiger on the loose. There isn't a tiger on the loose. And so it flips into this sort of panic state. And really, we have to just accept the fact that, yeah, we've got to sort of change the narrative, really, recondition our brain to see it as something different, see it as excitement if needs be, which is what I do. Definitely learning about it. So that's where, your community really, really helps, because there is nothing better for phobias and fears than actually opening it up and examining the very guts of it, actually. And I did this physically with our dog. So when we first got our dog, and of course I'd never touched a dog. I'd never seen the dog's teeth. I'd never felt inside a dog's mouth or anything like that, or its claws. I'd always had cats, which are very, very different creatures. And the breed of dog we've got is she's a soft mouth breed. She's a gun dog. And so as hard as she tries, she's never put her teeth on me. And even if she did, she's one of those dogs that can carry eggs without breaking them.
Okay.
And she is so kind. She's such a kind dog that I spent months, and I do mean months, sort of looking inside her mouth and touching her teeth and gazing and putting my head on her belly and listening to her heart. And, my heart would be going bum, 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 because, I'd so conditioned myself to think it's dangerous. But I cannot stress enough how therapeutic it was and how empowered it has made a human being to quite literally put my head into the thing that I fear most and examine it. And it's the same with airplanes, I think. The more you examine it, the more you challenge yourself to look face into your fear, the more it evaporates. It just does. It just evaporates.
So what have you been doing then to make this Mumbai trip so okay? You must have been working on stuff,
Telling people, well, I think the first thing was to every time a little question mark, because I think the weeks building up to flying is when it's easy to think I'm gonna be flying soon, and then you allow the fears to grow. So every single time that came into my head, I started thinking about the holiday. Of course, seeing my cousin, we don't see enough of her really, because she's lived all her life in India, and she comes over to see her mum, my aunt. But the rest of the time she's lived in India with her dad and her step family. So just thinking forward to that, talking to people about the upcoming holiday, not allowing myself to say, but I'm a bit scared about flight. When people asked, like my daughter-in-law, how do you feel about flying? Making sure that I kept telling my brain I'm excited about it. Looking forward to proving my brain wrong, that actually flying is great. And that was my prep. As I say, I was very, very careful to make sure that I thought really hard about what I'd need with me in the cabin on the flight. And so I'd have my ebook fully charged. I had my iPad fully charged. I had a puzzle book in case I needed something else to do. I downloaded a whole heap of TV programs and films onto my iPad. I had lots of podcasts on my phone. So I had absolutely everything I need. I wear hearing aids as part of my genetic condition. I get terrible tinnitus. And so I have special hearing aids to deal with that. I made sure that not only were they fully charged, but that I had a spare pair because it was a long flight.
Yeah.
So that would deal. And I can play podcasts through my hearing aids as well. So everything was sorted out. As I make sure that I'd thought about food on the trip. I am vegetarian, but I'm also anaphylactic to eggs. So I'd make sure well in advance that I had planned my meals and let Virgin know. I went for a vegan meal because at least then it's going to be egg free. I had sat with my husband, who say is an absolute gem, and we had chosen seats, and I knew that because he told me which were the most stable places to sit on a plane. But I said I also want to be able to see out the window because I find being able to see out the window very helpful. So we chose the seats that would be best for that, and they were brilliant. Okay. And I made sure also that we were flying with an airline that I felt very comfortable with, and I've flown with Virgin before, and I've just always had good experiences. And then I was in charge of booking the flights. So again, taking that was my sister was in charge of hotels, and I said I want to be in charge of booking the flight. Again, that gave me ownership.
Mhm.
And anyone on your community will know this, of course. Did I look into all the safety records of all the different positives? Of course. And so when I was booking the flights, I said my internal flights I want to go with Indigo. And I was not disappointed. They were brilliant. And then I kept reminding my brain when my brain was saying stupid things, because brains say stupid things. Every time my brain said something stupid, I told my brain not to be so stupid, and to think of something else. So I thought of other things like, what will I listen to? What will I look? What a film will I watch? I watched a new film. Looking out the window as well. Somebody once said to me, up in the sky, Rachel, it's always a sunny day. Up above the clouds, it's always a sunny day. And that's a metaphor for life anyway, isn't it? Up above all the clouds in life, it's always fine. Lift yourself up. So I always look out the window. When I see the clouds, the minute I see clouds, I think, oh, bumpy road. I listen to the announcements. When the you get the bing bong, hello, this is a Sean pilot speaking. My brain always wants to say he's just about to tell us that we're going to crash. That's my brain sort of comes in, and I always just shut up and listen carefully and believe what the pilot is telling me. Here's going to be a little bit of turbulence, and I know that turbulence is completely safe. I don't mind turbulence. I have had some and had massive panics. That's when I have screamed, and I mean proper full on scream. But now, no, thank you, that turbulence is uncomfortable but always safe. And so I've learned to enjoy the turbulence because I'm a girl that loves a speedboat.
Wow.
I love a speedboat because you see, I am a very, very good swimmer. And although I'm very, very, very respectful of water and the sea and everything, I always knew that if I got flung out the speedboat, and I have jumped off boats into oceans and things, that at least I can swim. So when the kind of speedboat's doing this, I'm like, yeah, we're in the back doing this. Wow. And that'll be me on airplanes now when there's turbulence like this.
Love that.
But it's the same.
Oh, good way. It's a good way of thinking about it. Like hands in the air. Woo.
But I like fairground rides though. I'm the girl on fairground rides that throws my hands in the air and goes, yeah. As we sort of, and if only we could all do that on airplanes, life would be a bit.
Well, airplanes, there's not that much. I always think if you like fairground, because people have said to me, I don't like fairground rides, so I'm not going to like flying. And I said, well, actually, if you like fairground rides, you'd find flying boring because there isn't that much movement, to be honest.
Yes,
It's a non-event, really, if you do adrenaline.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But other things that I think are wonderful about flying, and what a privilege. Don't you think? What an amazing privilege
Yeah.
to see the planet. I mean, we're the only generation that's been able to do this, right? To be able to look down on our amazing planet
That's crazy.
higher than the birds. Higher than birds can fly and look down and go, oh my word, this is like, it is such a phenomenal privilege.
Yes.
But I think we should really just enjoy it, soak it up, glory in the fact that our brilliant scientists and engineers have made this possible. Thank you very much to be able to do it.
I agree. I think it is that it's very easy to sort of like to get wrapped up in like this thing is, you know, terrifying and, well, this is going to happen to me, that's going to happen to me. And, you know, and there is a place beyond that where we can kind of go, and just once you can deal with that stuff, it's just go, actually, oh my God, aren't we, how lucky are we?
Yes. Yes. And I think what I would say to people in your community is that if you can give up, if you can genuinely just give up, you know, say, I cannot have this in my life anymore because it doesn't serve us. It's no earthly use, but it is the most powerful feeling to have been so terrified of something, and to give up that terror is, well, like staring death in the face and overcoming it, really. It is the most amazing feeling of strength, of power, of, all the good things in life. And then you can soak up, as I say, the privilege that we are given, the opportunity that we're given to sit up in the air while somebody takes care of us and feeds us and looks down on the world. It's amazing.
I know. I totally agree. I think we're so lucky.
We really are.
So lucky.
We really are. And I have to say that in all our weeks in Bombay, and I did 5 flights in 3 weeks. And we did nighttime flights, we did daytime flights, we did overnight flights. And the most scary bit was the bus ride we took from Agra down to Jaipur, which was mental, frankly. Honestly, because the driving in India is off the scale mad. Overtaking on hills and blind corners and everything. That was like, oh my days. And that went on for 6 hours. 6 hours. And yet I still survived. I didn't see anyone killed on the road that day. So, you know, flying is, I know everyone says, oh, flying's the safest form of transport. And even those of us who are terrified know that to be true, but that doesn't take the terror away. All of us have to give it up.
Yeah, I mean, that statement and statistics mean bugger all to most.
They do. They're absolutely naff.
It's probably more annoying, if anything else.
Yeah, because of course the fear is irrational. Fears are irrational, and the only thing that we can do in the face of something that is an irrational fear is really just to choose to ditch it. Just choose, because we can choose. We can absolutely choose to tell our brain other stuff. Tell your brain other stuff, and make that journey forward, really. Yeah.
That's a lovely moment to finish the podcast. And also, I just want to say, I said this last time, I'm going to say it again, that many of you are in the Lovefly community, and particularly the Facebook group, that exists because of a 1.5 hour briefing that Rachel gave me after I met her via a mastermind group I belonged to for a bit. And had you have not taught me how to set it up, the Facebook group wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have a clue where to start. And you've well, even on Podia now, we've got a membership site on Podia, which is the other platform you introduced me to. So we're basically, whatever you do, we just copy it. You know, so not for midwives and young mums.
Well, so you have done well, and the community is fantastic, and I can see day by day, more and more people are joining and finding the right sort of help. There's lots of help out there. There's useless, but you want the right sort of help, which is a community is always helpful. People, like-minded people who are on the same journey as you, if you pardon the pun. But yeah, people who are on that journey with you. But then people at the helm who can keep you all calm, really. Come on, kids, settle down. It's that sort of feeling in that sort of like the Lovefly community.
I hope so. That's what we try to, because we're me, Susan, and John are all fairly low drama when it comes to that sort of stuff, and just try and keep an eye on it. And you know, Captain Bing Bong, you know, Pete Higgins, and you know, the regulars who are posting all the time. There's lots of them I could mention, so I won't because it'll be a long list. But those are kind of the people that hold it together, and then we get we probably get about 100 odd people coming in a week, maybe a bit more. I just hope that they find it useful, and I don't mind like the really difficult questions that people want to ask, but just what we are really careful to do, and this is probably will get more and more unwieldy, is just trying to moderate it, you know, like. So thankfully, normally we get if somebody puts something weird on there, then we're going to get like tagged, so we can go in and either remove the post, or if they're really toxic, remove them. But thankfully, we haven't.
Yeah. Well, what I found with my own community, and I have quite a big community on Facebook for people who have the same genetic condition as me, because I was asked to write on that, so I'm published on the condition. And what I discovered with that and the community I've had through lockdown was that if you've set the tone and you really have worked hard to maintain that tone, then even when the community gets very, very big, it kind of self-moderates. And I don't have to do, I was away for 3 weeks and I didn't go into my community at all to moderate. But it really self-moderated. And the word has got around that, you know, if you want somewhere safe to talk about this conditioning that isn't scary, but actually is really empowering and really very reassuring, come on in here, because Rachel's community is safe and empowering and reassuring. And so it's become self-moderating. And of course I'm there, but I don't have to work so hard. And that's the same with Lovefly, is that it now is known as the space where it isn't just a terror zone. It is somewhere where we are all working together to learn how to overcome this very common fear. As I say, it's such a common fear. And, you know, we've all walked that journey. And so, you know, it's never going to be judgmental because we've all been there. We all know exactly what it feels like. We genuinely feel each other's pain, if you like. And it's just nice to have people who have walked that journey, have come the other side, and can say, like me, you know, there is life after your fear of flying. Get out there and grab it.
We should stop right there. That's your mic drop, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rachel, that was brilliant as always. Thank you so much. It's really nice to hear the part 2 and just hear what you're doing. And you're reminded of some of your little wisdom and little phrases. I shall look forward to when I listen back to it. Just be like,
it'll be lovely.
Yeah, there's some really great bits there. But thank you so much, and thanks.
You're very, very welcome.
You know,
you're very, very welcome. And yeah, if you haven't already been to India, stick it on your bucket list.
Yeah, I've been for 2 nights. I don't know if that counts.
Do it again. Stay longer.
Namaste.